Hi, I'm Dr. Kevin Mailo, and you're listening to the Physician Empowerment Podcast. At Physician Empowerment, we're focused on transforming the lives of Canadian physicians through education and finance, practice transformation, wellness, and leadership. After you've listened to today's episode, I encourage you to visit us at phys.empowerment.ca, that's PHYS, empowerment.ca, to learn more about the many resources we have to help you make that change in your own life, practice, and personal finances. Now on to today's episode. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Kevin Mailo, as most of you probably know, because I open a lot of episodes on the show. I am very pleased, however, to be joined by Dr. Susannah Ward, an Australian rehabilitation specialist and published author, who's going to be speaking to us today about self-acceptance and changing the culture of medicine. So with that being said, Susannah, do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting to be on your podcast. I've listened to the episodes and I think what you guys do is fantastic. So good on you. Yeah, I'm Susannah. I live in Newcastle, Australia. I grew up in Sydney. So a city girl originally, did all my training there, and then we relocated up north to live on a beach and to be sort of immersed by nature as opposed to live in a sort of city apartment in one of those metropolitan places. I'm a fellow of the College of Physicians and a specialist of rehabilitation medicine. So I work a lot with people with brain injury, amputations, spinal cord injury, that sort of thing. In addition to that, I'm a mum, got a 6-year-old who's going on 24, keeps me busy. And I do a lot of work in the governance area with the College of Physicians, trying to advocate for a more nurturing and supportive culture in medicine and optimizing sort of systems issues in the workplace as opposed to focusing on individual resilience building. So looking at the actual workplace, because as you know, internationally, we've got massive rates of burnout in medicine, which is a result of chronic stress from workplace demands. So that's our focus. I also have a business called Ataraxia Collective, which is a Stoic term. Ataraxia means bliss. Not many Western people use that term, but I think it's really cool. Terrible for a website because no one knows how to spell it and it's really long. But I'm a bit stubborn like that and I think it's cool. And I run retreats for doctors that help them complete their CPD and promote supported time for well-being activities like yoga and mindfulness, which I'm a teacher of. I can never really remember the things that I do. There's a lot of things, but yeah, it keeps me busy. I like the variety. I like the flexibility. I like the fact that I have my own unique career. So.
And sorry, it's summer right now, if I'm not mistaken, and you're on the beach in Australia.
It is.
You can hear the bitterness in my voice, Susannah, because it's the polar vortex in Western Canada right now where it's 30 below, and I got frostbite this week doing the snow. So yeah, maybe we should head down and do a retreat with you sometime and escape this horrible winter that we're having. But yes, you're in a very beautiful place, as I understand it.
Well, you're going to Cancun, aren't you, soon? Hopefully you'll get some...
Yes, we are headed to Cancun, so I keep holding on to that. Just another 3 weeks to go is at the time of this recording, where we ourselves will be doing some work in the space of mindfulness and health and refocusing our lives as physicians, because I think we're so busy that we struggle to stop, take a breath, and ask, like, am I happy? And is my career, is my personal life going the way I want it to be? So why don't you talk about a little bit of your own journey that got you to this point, right? Because I think most of us graduate and it's all about clinical medicine, career milestones, and achieve. But describe your journey for us, Susannah.
Yeah. Well, let's just be honest and real here, shall we, Kevin? I had things that I brought to medicine that I didn't know anything about because, you know, like most people, you'll learn more about yourself as you get older. But a lot of my junior years were around studying in high school to get the marks to get into uni and then studying through uni to get through to medicine. And I did medical science with honours and then medicine with honours. So it was quite a long slog and I loved uni, but it didn't leave a lot of time for extracurricular activities. And unfortunately, I didn't really have a whole skill set of tools to fall on to restore and to cope with stress and things like that. By the time I'd finished my junior year, so in Australia we do internship and then residency before picking a subspecialty, you can continue on just as a hospitalist, but not many people do that. I was really burnt out. I was really disillusioned with medicine. It wasn't what I was expecting. It was very harsh. I felt that I had no autonomy, that the expectations were unclear. There was always role ambiguity, terrible work design, rostering that was completely unreasonable. And often I was asked to do things that I just wasn't trained for. So, for example, first term residency, 1 year out, to man the HDU and ICU wards in a rural hospital alone at night. And I'd never even worked with those machines. And so just stuff like that, needing to have to speak up as a junior, feeling vulnerable and creating reputation, like that, vulnerable of reputational harm, to say no. I mean, they're huge stresses. So by the end of residency, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I took a year off and traveled. And I came back still not knowing what I was doing. And I decided between rehabilitation medicine or psychiatry. I would have been a great psychiatrist, but there's a lot of nights and the training is long. So I actually ended up picking rehab. It's a wonderful area of medicine, but very much the lifestyle chose me. So I wasn't able to do all that shift work because I need sleep. Anyway, did my rehab training and I got about halfway through where I'd been consistently exposed to teaching through humiliation, criticism, and quite frankly, at the time I didn't realize it, but now that I'm older and wiser, a lot of sexism.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a strong, independent female. I think differently. I would ask questions on ward rounds. I didn't jump through I was just there to learn. Like I wasn't trying to play the game. I don't have those skills. I'm terrible at it. And I think a lot of the male supervisors, it just clashed. So it was a really tough time. And I ended up quitting in that moment. I was like, I'm just going to quit. This is nonsense. Like, I just want to be a nice person and contribute to the world with a positive.
Yeah, you show up just wanting to do your job, get your training, and help your patients. And you realize there's so much more garbage, frankly, that you're expected to deal with.
I mean, I don't know about Canada, but in Australia, we have major systemic problems around the actual demands of work rather than the doctor. Like, as I mentioned earlier, rostering issues, support, bullying, all of these external issues. But I was like, man, I can just be a kind person and give back to people working in a shop or in a cafe. I used to run cafes. I love that. So I was like, I'll just quit. And then in that moment, I became fearless. I had nothing to lose, right? So I was like, okay, before I quit, I'm just going to do a few things. I'm going to, write that article about changing the culture of medicine. I'll join this committee and get involved in things. And I'll just get my ticket because I don't like not completing things. And I only had 2 years to go. And so I just want to get that specialist ticket. And it was through that process of demasking and showing up to work a more authentic version of me and being fearless, the fact that I do yoga and I do mindfulness and we need to change the culture. It's toxic. I started to find meaning and purpose and stay in the game. I was involved in positive change through the governance work, which then allowed me to see a silver lining. And I just got stronger and more confident in my own unique self and was able to make some hard decisions that were really scary and different. And then that led to this life that really does work for me. So here I am. I'm still a doctor. I haven't quit yet.
Wow. It's just listening to your story. It sounds like it's one of those like moments, I think a lot of us have had those in our lives when we think we're in a valley or, one of the low spots. And it's hard to see the horizon. And then you do something bold like that. Like you just change your mind or your mindset.
I don't think you have to hit a rock bottom, but I do think you have to be brutally honest with yourself. And so that requires compassion. So in yoga, we talk about ahimsa and satya. And satya is ultimate truth and ahimsa is loving kindness. We can't see the truth if it's painful without really being kind. And I think a lot of the pullback physicians face from being honest about their reality is that they take it on board as a character flaw that they're struggling, like as if they're the only one.
Like there's something wrong with them because they
Exactly.
don't feel super fulfilled, or they're feeling overwhelmed or burnt out.
Yeah, or they're the doctor that's struggling. Everyone else can do the work, but you need to back yourself. You need to trust yourself and say, hey, look, I have a lot of strengths. You know, I've put in the hard yards, and just know you're not alone and speak up. So if you're in that moment where you're like, something's got to give into it. Be bold, be courageous, trust yourself, back yourself, and make the change. Leap, the net will come, you know? So it is really scary. But if you connect with other doctors going through the same thing, it helps. And yeah, if you read the literature on burnout and all the issues in medicine, then you see that you're really not alone. I think the more that people embrace their unique selves and their holistic health needs and try and start to make some slow changes in their life that allow you to live aligned with your values and priorities, then there'll be more doctors staying in the game, albeit probably in a part-time creative version of it. But we'll have diversity that we need to get on top of problems. You know, we'll have a happier, healthier workforce. We'll have a more sustainable, healthy medical culture.
Well, I mean, you look, I mean, the things you describe, in the Australian healthcare system, I think they resonate with a lot of our listenership in Canada and the US when you talk about unsafe working conditions, excessive, expectations, bullying, just dysfunction. And it has to change, right? Like we're at the definition of insanity. Just trying more of the same within the culture of medicine and expecting a different result.
Yeah, I think that it is changing. So when I was a trainee, it wasn't spoken of. No one even knew what mindfulness was. You know, people didn't talk about a culture of wellness in medicine, and yeah, you just jumped through hoops. And if you spoke up, you were blacklisting yourself for a job. But these days, it's wonderful. The junior doctors I see are more empowered. There's actually been a class action in Australia where they sued the government for not paying unrostered overtime, as they should. I mean, that was something I used to speak up, and I actually changed it for one of the hospitals. Because if there's one way to breed resentment in a JMO and burnout, it's to not pay them for the good work they're doing. And also medico-legally, if you're not documented as working and something goes wrong, you're not actually medico-legally covered.
I agree.
So anyway, I do see the change. And, now when I speak to interns about mindfulness and yoga, they all know what it is. And yeah, so I'm positive. I think it is at least being acknowledged now as a problem.
And reflecting on the physician that's struggling, right? And we know, and I'm not going to go into the data, but we know the data is staggering, right? I know the pre-pandemic data was showing over 60 or, around 60% of, North American physicians were struggling with burnout. I'm assuming it's similar in Australia and other Western healthcare systems. So for the physicians that are struggling in the moment, somebody who's listening right now going, I'm tired, I'm feeling burnt out and don't know what to do. What are some practical things somebody can do for themselves to begin to move in somewhere of a better direction?
Yeah. Well, I think congratulate themselves for acknowledging it, because that's the first step, right? I don't know about you guys, but I still to this day, if I'm sick, I don't think I'm sick until I'm so sick and it's almost like over. And then I look back, I was like, I was really sick that day. So I think doctors tend to they push themselves beyond, physical cues to rest and exhaust themselves. So I think if you're at that point where you're saying, I'm burnt out, well done, well done for acknowledging it. You've got to call it, name it, accept it for what it is. And then just radically accept that you're a human. You're not AI. We're expected to be AI. We live in a life where we're now competing with AI. This is insane. And you think it's bad now, it's going to get faster. All this AI is going to make everything faster. But we're humans, right? And so the more you go, okay, I'm exhausted and I accept that about myself and I forgive myself for my humanness, then you can start to turn the light on. What are the things I need to be well? You need to see your GP. You need to go and get assessed for a mood disorder or another psychiatric condition, because burnout is not depression, but it presents very similar to depression. So the last thing you want is to be roaming around thinking you're burnt out when there's another area of management that's really going to help you. You need rest, prioritize sleep. This is probably not what anyone wants to hear, and it might be easier said than done, but cut out drugs and alcohol. That will not empower you. So you've got to go through this hard work sober, because that is the work that you're doing where you are having an experience of yourself meeting your needs and processing the challenges to learn that you can do that, right? So any alcohol, drugs that are numbing, escaping, a crutch, whatever, cut them out. Also terrible for sleep and will deplete your energy.
Not helping.
Yeah, we want to make...
I completely agree.
At the very least, just don't make things worse, right? So nutrition, movement is obvious, and then speak about it. Get the supports you need, whether or not it's your friends, family, or professional support. I'm a big fan of psychologists if you are privileged enough to have the money and resources and time to see one. And then maybe even take time off. So I've had a period of burnout after a bullying experience, and I took a month off. That was so hard. And I totally burnt bridges at that job. I've never had really a job back there again. And you know what? I didn't have a choice. I can't regret that. It's what I needed to do.
What alternative is there? To stay and take it?
And do you really want to work in that environment anyway? What are you choosing for yourself, right? So I think also doing some holistic stuff's really cool. Like there's a lot of neuroscience now to explain mantra, journaling, affirmations, vision, and just start to think really clear on your values, your priorities. Once you've got more energy, once you've got some sleep in the bank, once you've got your nutrition up and some time, you will need to start then doing the inner reflective work and get to know yourself. And so values to me is the traits you wish to embody. So how you want to show up in the world. And you can do that as a doctor. You can do that working in a shop. You don't have to be a physician. And the priorities. So time with family, I don't know, surfing, maybe not surfing for you all.
Snowboarding when it's not 30 below.
Exactly.
When it's not 30 below.
And that's when you got to start keeping them in mind when you make future decisions that determine your lifestyle, and see if there are options that allow you to live aligned with those things. And then slowly with time, will find your unique recipe for wellness, I think.
And I mean, what I'm hearing here is an overwhelming cry out to prioritize self, because we have jobs, family lives, social obligations, where those things all seem to come before our basic needs of sleep, psychological safety, proper nourishment, all of those things that are so key, so fundamental to being healthier.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people need to work on their boundaries and giving themselves permission to self-care. And if you really can't, then go see a psychologist or a doctor who will give you that permission. Mm-hmm. It is amazing how much we get in our own way. But obviously, if you're not filling your own tank, if you're not meeting your holistic health needs, then you're flogging a dead horse. How can you ever expect to be a change maker, to really show up with a full bandwidth for your patients, to even have the cognitive function to think things through properly? There's a lot to consider, the evidence-based, other diagnoses, biases. If you're burnt out, you can't do those things. So I think throwing yourself back into that human boat where you're not alone, this is a human thing that's a consequence of the lifestyle I've been expected and thrown in to live. I need to do these things to get back to a functioning state. And it will take the time it takes. And just give yourself permission to go through that journey, and be kind to yourself. And if you struggle to do that, get the help and talk to other people, because you're not alone. Get support groups. Yeah. And also the other thing is, if you're like killer with your self-care in medicine, everyone's watching. You are literally role modeling the change you wish to see. And is there anything more purposeful in life? That's the best teacher.
Yeah. And I'm hearing as well a lot of self-compassion, right? Because this is a process. I mean, for many of us, change to get to that healthier, happier state is a long road. Because for many of us, a lot of these patterns go all the way back to childhood, right? Getting flogged for, insufficient grades, being expected to work and never complain. I mean, this for many of us, this goes back to our youth, and we carry it all the way into adulthood and into our professional lives. So I think, for those, starting to make the change, inevitably we fall back into old patterns of overwork, of not sleeping enough, whatever it is that we might struggle with, but creating lots of space to say, yeah, but this is a process. It's not an instantaneous occurrence.
Yes, I mean that is to have biases and blind spots. So things like people pleasing,
Yeah.
reliance on external achievement to feel good, perfectionism, relentless standards. What else is there? Or for some doctors, arrogance, thinking they know it all, thinking they don't need help. There's so many blind spots, and it's human, it's normal. So this is not a character flaw, right? And the more doctors can dive deep into their drivers, the better clinical care they'll have, the more mastery and agency they'll have over their own behavior and choices. And also, there'll be more cultural safety, because this is what cultural safety is all about. It's knowing your own prejudices and assumptions. It's not necessarily about understanding all the aspects of another culture. It's actually turning the spotlight on yourself. What are the thoughts I'm having? What are the biases I've got? How is my role in a position of power influencing my care? So I don't know if you guys have spoken to people about bias and blind spots and things like that, but I think that's a really
I
important.
feel like this is another outstanding podcast episode where we should get you back on the show to talk about these, because this is it, right? A lot of us struggle with these things, right? The role of needing to be a hero, or that badge of honor many physicians wear about working lots of hours and being, that's very tough medical warrior, persona. And so I think there's a lot of work to be done in those biases. And, just to talk about psychological health, yeah, having a therapist or a psychologist, I think, is key, because that's somebody that's helping the self-reflective process, right? Starting to pick up on little things that need attention, because it's always hard to look at flaws, or I don't even know if you want to call them flaws, but areas we struggle in or challenge.
They're really a
Blind
cognitive
spots.
bias.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to call things flawed, because there's a lot of positive that got us
Why
to where
not?
we are as
We're
individuals.
all flawed. Why not?
Well,
We're all flawed. I'm totally flawed.
yeah, we all have that. We all have that, right? But it's
Yeah,
embracing who
human.
we are and strengthening ourselves holistically in our entirety, I think, is so important, right?
Well, there's so much to explore when it comes to flaws, because really what you're dealing with is just a human mind and body. We're limited by our neuroscience, and we are inevitably influenced in a major way by our environment and conditioning. So in rehab, we talk a lot about the patient, but also their environment. And in the environment, there's so many obstacles and barriers, but also supports and resources. And there's conditioning and social norms and things like that. So I think, yeah, a lot of these flaws that may keep doctors in shame and quiet and in positions that may be detrimental to them or harmful, to try and fit in and be liked and good enough and all these things, they're actually just very natural consequences of being a human being and trying to survive. So there's no shame in that. There's mastery and empowerment. The more you dive, yeah.
I love that. What a beautiful way of describing who we are, all of us as people. I know that we're starting to come, to the end of our time together, but there was something profound that you shared before we started to record. I'd be grateful if we could just come back to that, and if you could share with our listenership. But you talked about making the most of life now, right? Because this is what we have. We have one life.
I'm laughing because my friends have always called me like no small talk Sanny. Sanny's my nickname. And we're really just diving deep into like the massive issues of living. But absolutely, I mean, this is now, right? I mean, I do take a bit of a secular approach, and I just focus on this is my lived experience, right? As I'm a human living this life, that's all I know. I've got no idea what anymore. And I think a wise person knows what they don't know. But my focus is on what I do know and where I do have some autonomy control. And right now is live, right? I mean, I'm middle-aged now. It's gone so fast. And I have every commitment and intention to make the most of the years to come and to live right now. So if you're not happy, if something's holding you back, if you're stuck in a rut, just acknowledge it and change, slowly, tiny little things without huge pressure, with support. You're not alone, but seize the day, shine your light, share your light, be the light, embrace your unique self, be kind to yourself, back yourself. It's not you necessarily. This world is very unsafe, very chaotic, very fast. And, we're just little humans trying to be safe. So the more you can honor yourself and be honest with yourself and meet your needs, the more psychological safety you breed within yourself. So the relationship you have with yourself is the most unique one, right? So I think if you're not feeling like you're making the most of this life, there's your solution. Dive deep into you and your relationship with yourself first. Then you build that foundation of safety, trust, you've got your back, you're meeting your needs. And that's when then you can grow your branches, get into governance, be the head of department, add in that PhD or whatever it is, hairband, crazy external achievement that us physicians feel that we need to be doing. But you've got to get that foundation first. And that is really about knowing yourself, meeting your needs, living aligned with your values and priorities, and being a master of tools and skills to survive.
And I think this is so important too, is like beginning to take control of self. And because in the end, we can't control the world we live in. We fundamentally cannot control the healthcare system we live in, we work in. We cannot control things like pandemics or any of the other challenges we face in, our societies or in our day-to-day lives. But we can control ourselves and our reactions. And we can do that self-work. And as we do that, we start to feel better. Because I think a key element of burnout is that loss of control, or that feeling like you're just getting swept down the river and you don't have any power to swim, but you do. And, again, if not now, when? I mean, we're all, vast majority of us in healthcare professions are reminded of how frail life is. And so the challenge is to live it better and live it now, not knowing what the future holds for us. And so I'm so grateful that we connected like this, Susannah, because this was an outstanding topic that I think so many of us globally need to hear. So any final thoughts?
I think ultimately, because we've really focused on this mastery piece and making the most of this fleeting life business, it is your response. You need to take sort of radical ownership and responsibility for where you're at, but we 100% need each other, and you are not alone.
I love that.
Yeah. So I hope that if anyone listened and is in, a place of need, just know you're not alone, but you do need to acknowledge it and take the first steps. No one's going to come save you.
And sorry, what was the name of your book?
Oh, yeah. Here you go. Mastering Real Wellness. Yeah, it's a self-help book. I'm obsessed with self-help. I've really benefited over the years. And it's all about this stuff. It's a complete manifesto of what I call real wellness. I think that is what everyone is chasing. All my patients are chasing this elixir that is nonsense crap. It's sold to us by, wellness marketing as some sort of external thing or particular thing that we need to do. But actually, it's not about, a supplement or wearing Lululemon or doing yoga and being young and blonde or anything external that really just feeds on our insecurity and wanting to be good enough and fit in and liked and things like that. Real wellness, that feeling of contentment and, ataraxia comes from that relationship you have with yourself. Okay, so that's self-mastery. And it's three things. It's self-awareness, self-acceptance, and adaptive, flexible self-care, self-management. And that's a lifestyle. That's a lifelong commitment. It's not perfect. It's a practice, and it's just about every time you face a challenge or need to make a choice or you're in a rut or whatnot, you come back to those skills as best you can most of the time. It's not about getting it right every time. So
wonderful.
Anyway.
Thank you again. Thank you so much for being here, Susannah. This was outstanding. And we look forward to having you back on the show. Thanks
for your time. It was lovely to connect with you.
This was great.
Miles away, and have a great time.
In this frozen north where I'm at currently. All right. Thank you.
Care.
Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Physician Empowerment Podcast. If you're ready to take those next steps in transforming your practice, finances, or personal well-being, then come and join us at phys-empowerment.ca, PHYS empowerment.ca, to learn more about how we can help. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd really appreciate it if you would share our podcast with a colleague or friend, and head over to Apple Podcasts to give us a 5-star rating and review. If you've got feedback, questions, or suggestions for future episode topics, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to join us and be interviewed and share some of your story, we'd absolutely love that as well. Please send me an email at kmilo@phys-empowerment.ca. Thank you again for listening. Bye.